The sun was beginning its languid descent toward the horizon over Lake Morrison, painting the sky in a masterpiece of fire and gold. Ribbons of orange, pink, and violet stretched across the vast expanse, their brilliance mirrored perfectly on the glassy surface of the water. It was my lake, the lake I had lived beside for 30 years, its moods as familiar to me as my own breathing, the lake where I swam nearly every morning, where the water was my sanctuary, my gym, my church. I should have known something was wrong the moment Tyler suggested we watch the sunset from the dock. "Come on, Grandma," he'd said, his voice dripping with a saccharine concern that set my teeth on edge. His hands settled on the handles of my wheelchair, his grip firm. "Let's get you closer to the water. The view is so much better from the end of the dock." His wife, Amber, drifted beside us, her phone a permanent extension of her hand. She'd been distracted all evening, her gaze flitting from the screen to Tyler and back again, her whispers a constant, irritating buzz in my ear. She hadn't looked me in the eye once since they arrived. "I am Dorothy Chun. I am 68 years old, and for the last 15 years, I have used a wheelchair. Severe rheumatoid arthritis, that insidious, autoimmune thief, stole the cartilage from my knees, ankles, and hips, transforming the simple act of walking into an exquisite torture. The wheelchair was not a surrender, it was a liberation. It gave me back my mobility, my independence, my life." But to so many people, the chick is all they see. They see a vessel of limitation, of weakness, of helplessness. They do not see the woman sitting in it. They never asked about Dorothy Chun, Olympic bronze medalist, swimming coach of 30 years, a woman who had been more at home in water than on land since she could walk, a woman whose arms, shoulders, and back were roped with powerful muscle, forged by decades of compensating for legs that no longer functioned, and by a lifetime of pulling herself through countless miles of water. Tyler and Amber saw the wheelchair. That was their first and ultimately fatal mistake. Before I tell you about the night my grandson tried to murder me, you need to understand who I am. In 1976, I stood on a podium in Montreal, a heavy bronze medal cool against my skin, tears cutting, clean tracks through the chlorine-scented air. I was 20 years old, and I had just swum the anchor leg for the United States women's 4x100-meter freestyle relay team. The roar of the crowd was a physical force. The national anthem, a bittersweet symphony that represented 15 years of 5 a.m. practices, of burning lungs and screaming muscles, of a single-minded devotion to the rhythm of stroke, breathe, turn. Pushed out after the Olympics, the water never let me go. I became a coach. For 30 years, I lived on the deck, my voice echoing under natatorium ceilings, my eyes sharp for the slightest flaw in a stroke. I coached at universities, at elite clubs, at Olympic trials. I watched dozens of my students conquer national rankings. 3 of them stood on Olympic podiums of their own. The water was my language, and I taught others how to speak it. Then, at 50, my body turned traitor. The rheumatoid arthritis was a quiet, creeping invasion. Within 2 years, I traded my coaching whistle for a cane. Within 5, the pain was a white-hot constant, and walking more than a few steps brought tears to my eyes. The day my custom-built wheelchair arrived was not a day of mourning, it was a day of triumph. It meant I could move through the world again without agony. I adapted. I always adapt. I modified my swimming technique, learning to rely on the formidable engine of my upper body, letting my legs trail as useless but buoyant cargo. It wasn't the elegant stroke of my youth, but it was efficient. It kept me in the water, and that was all that mattered. My husband, Robert, bought this house on Lake Morrison for the deepwater dock and the gentle, sandy bottom. "You need to swim like I need to eat, Dorothy," he'd said, his kind eyes crinkling. He was my rock, my champion. When a heart attack stole him from me a year ago, the vast, quiet house, the serene lake, and the crushing silence became my sole companions. The house, paid off, was worth about $800,000. His life insurance left me $500,000. Our careful savings added another $200,000. I was a wealthy widow, secure, comfortable, and, in my grandson's covetous eyes, apparently an obstacle to be removed. Tyler had always carried a seed of entitlement, a belief that the world owed him prosperity without effort. My daughter, Rachel, a wonderful, patient mother, had done her best. I had done my part, paying his tuition at a good state university, offering loans that became gifts when his ventures inevitably failed, a restaurant that folded in 6 months, a tech startup that never found funding, a real estate scheme that evaporated his friend's money. At 32, he'd never held a job for more than a year, living off Amber's dental hygienist's salary and the ever-dwindling generosity of family. Lately, his questions had taken a sinister turn. Grandma, have you updated your will since Grandpa died, who's the beneficiary on the life insurance? Have you thought about what happens to the house? I'd brushed them aside, cloaking my unease in the comforting lie of familial concern. How naive that seems now. They arrived for dinner on a perfect Tuesday in late August, the air warm and soft with a breeze coming off the lake. Tyler had called 2 days prior, his voice unusually warm. "We haven't seen you in months, Grandma. Let us bring dinner." The distance since Robert's funeral had been palpable, but I'd chalked it up to grief. I was happy for the company, happy to fill the silent house with voices, even theirs. They came bearing takeout containers of Chinese food and smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Tyler's hug was a beat too long, his gaze sweeping over the living room, the artwork, the grand piano, as if appraising inventory. Amber's perfume was a cloying cloud, her hug brittled out. We ate on the back deck overlooking the water. Tyler made a show of concern. "How are you managing, Grandma, all alone out here?" "I manage perfectly well, Tyler," I said, my voice steady, a cleaning service, a neighbor for the yard. "I've been doing my own cooking and bills for 50 years. But the wheelchair, it must make things so hard. I've had it for 15 years. I'm adapted." "I'm fine." Still, he pressed, a strange glint in his eye. "At your age, living alone, have you thought about assisted living? Or maybe moving in with Mom?" A cold trickle of alarm traced my spine. "I'm 68, not 90. This is my home. I'm not going anywhere." A shadow passed over his face, frustration quickly masked. Then, as the sun began to bleed into the horizon, he made his move. "Let's watch from the dock, Grandma. The view is spectacular from out there. Let me push you." Every instinct in my body, the instincts of a survivor, a competitor, screamed no. The eagerness in his voice was all wrong. But he was my grandson, the boy I'd taught to fish off that very dock, the child I'd cheered for at soccer games. So, against the silent screaming in my veins, I said, "All right." The dock was Robert's sturdy construction, 30 feet of solid planks extending into the lake, with railings on both sides except at the very end, where it opened for swimming access. Tyler wheeled me right to that precipice, right at the edge here. Perfect, right? The sunset was, indeed, breathtaking. The lake was a sheet of burnished copper. Amber stood beside me, her phone raised, but I noticed the lens was angled downward at me, not at the spectacle above. "Grandma," Tyler began, his voice shedding its casual tone, becoming serious, cold. "We need to talk about your will." A chill, deeper than the evening air, settled over me. "My affairs are in order, Tyler. Your mother is the executor. My lawyer has everything. But when, Grandma," he pressed, his voice dropping, "when is it going to happen? You could live another 20 years. The words hung between us, vile and heavy. "I certainly hope to," I said, my own voice turning to ice. "We need the money now." The change was abrupt, the mask fully off. The affectionate grandson was gone, replaced by a stranger with hungry eyes. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about you sitting on over $1 million while Emba and I can't even make rent." He spat, his composure cracking. "It's not fair. Life isn't fair, Tyler. That money is for my security." "What security?" He scoffed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You're an old woman in a chair. How much security do you need, Tyler?" Christopher chunked. I used my best coach's voice, the one that could stop a charging teenager mid-div. "You watch your tone." He laughed, then, a dry, bitter rattle. "What? What are you going to do?" "Wheel away." Ember giggled. A high, nervous, complicit giggle, real fear, cold and sharp, shot through me. "Take me back to the house now." "I don't think so." His hands tightened on the chair's handles. "We've been thinking about our future about what we're owed. You are not owed anything. I'm your only grandson, he hissed, his face close to my ear. It should come to me. It will come to me through your mother when I die. Naturally, eventually isn't good enough. His whisper was full of venom. We need it now. Before I could react, before I could scream, he pushed the chair forward. The front wheels lurched over the wooden edge. For a terrifying second, the world tilted, the glorious sky swapping places with the dark, waiting water. Tyler, sorry, Grandma. His voice was empty, utterly devoid of anything human. But you're in the way. With a final, vicious shove, he sent me over the edge. The plunge into Lake Morrison was a shock of absolute cold. The lake, fed by deep springs, never truly warmed. The heavy wheelchair became an anchor, its steel frame and padded seat dragging me down instantly. I was strapped in, hurtling toward the murky bottom. My scream was lost in a torrent of bubbles. I hit the soft, silty floor, 6 or 7 feet down. Darkness pressed in. Panic, pure and primal, clawed at my throat. Asterisk, this is it. This is how I die. Murdered by my own blood, at the bottom of my own lake. Asterisk then, cutting through the terror, a switch flipped. Decades of training, of muscle memory, of ingrained survival instinct took over. My hands, independent of my racing mind, found the quick release buckle of the safety strap across my chest, a flick of my thumbs, a push against the armrests, and I was free of the sinking chair, pushing myself up and away. My legs were dead weight, as usual, but my arms, my glorious, powerful arms, came alive. They pulled me upward through the chilled darkness in a powerful, modified breaststroke, my head tipped back, eyes fixed on the fading amber light above. I broke the surface with a ragged, gasping inhale, treading water silently, and I heard them. She's gone. Amber's voice, crisp and satisfied, carried across the still water. The old woman's finally gone. Now the $500,000 and the house are ours. Took long enough, Tyler replied, his voice grim. I've been waiting for years. Finally got tired of waiting. How long do we wait before calling 911? 20 minutes. We went in to get dessert, came back, and she was missing. Tragic accident. Old woman in wheelchair rolls into the lake. Will anyone question it? Why would they? She's old. She's in a chair. She lives alone. Accidents happen. Their footsteps receded on the dock, heading back to the house. Amber's laugh, light and cruel, floated back to me. Finally, that house is worth at least $800,000, plus the insurance and savings. We'll be set. Shouldn't have done this months ago, Tyler said, his voice fading. You needed to wait until Mom was out of town. I floated there, in the darkening lake, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The rage that bloomed in my chest was nuclear, all-consuming, but beneath the white-hot anger, something colder and more precise took hold. A calculating, Clary Day had made one critical, beautiful miscalculation. They had used water as their murder weapon. Water was my element, my strength, my home, and they had no idea that 3 months ago, after a series of neighborhood break-ins, I had a comprehensive security system installed. Cameras with high-definition video and crystal-clear audio covered every exterior angle of the property, including the dock. They had just starred in their own confession. I swam for shore, using a silent, efficient side stroke that left no wake. The boathouse, a small structure Robert built, was 30 yards down the shore. Inside, draped in an old tarp, was my spare wheelchair, an older, sturdier model I used for getting in and out of the lake. I hauled myself onto the gravel beach, my arms bearing the full weight of my body, my legs dragging behind. It was brutal work, but I did it. Inside, shivering, I peeled off my soaked clothes and found an old towel and a windbreaker. Once dry and covered, I transferred into the spare chair. Through the grimy window, I could see the lights of my house. 2 shadows moved in the kitchen, planning, rehearsing, celebrating. My hands shook, but my mind was a steel trap. I wheeled across the lawn, keeping to the shadows, not toward the house, but to the detached garage. Inside, I went straight to the security system panel. My phone, thank God, was in the chair's waterproof pouch. I accessed the cloud storage. There it was, time-stamped, high definition, with audio so clear it was as if they were standing next to me. I watched it all, the push, the fall, their damning post-murder chat. I downloaded copies, uploaded them to multiple cloud accounts, emailed them to myself. Then I made the calls. First, to Detective James Park. He'd been one of my swimmers 25 years ago, a determined kid who found his calling in law enforcement. Coach Dorothy, what's wrong? James, my grandson just tried to murder me. He pushed me into the lake. They think I'm drowned. They're in my house right now. A beat of stunned silence. You're safe. I'm in the garage. I swam out. James, I have it all on video. A longer pause. Of course you swam. Stay put. I'm coming in silent. We'll catch them in the act. Next, my daughter, Rachel, 3 hours away at a conference. Mom, what is it, Rachel? Sit down. Tyler tried to kill me tonight. The words were stones dropped into a still pond. I sent her the video link. 30 seconds later, her scream of horror and betrayal echoed through the phone. I'm coming right now. Calls to my lawyer, Margaret, and to my best friend, Suzanne, a former prosecutor. Finally, to Jennifer Walsh, an investigative reporter for the local news whose daughter I'd coached. Jennifer, how would you like an exclusive on an attempted murder with video? The perpetrators are at the victim's house right now. I'll be there in 20, she said, no hesitation. Then I waited. I watched the clock. At the 45-minute mark, right on schedule, the back porch light flicked on. Tyler and Amber walked down to the dock, their postures a pantomime of concern. Tyler shone a flashlight into the water, where the ghostly outline of my wheelchair was just visible on the bottom. He pulled out his phone. Double quotes, 911, what's your emergency? The operator's tinny voice was audible from my phone, still linked to the live camera feed. My grandmother. Tyler's voice was a masterpiece of panicked grief. She's in the lake. She's in a wheelchair. Please, hurry, he sobbed, the sound wrenching and utterly false. Amber wailed in the background. The performance was chilling in its competence as the dispatcher tried to calm him. The first unmarked car rolled silently into my driveway. Detective James Park emerged, followed by 2 uniforms. They approached the dock. Tyler Chun. Tyler turned, a mask of relief on his face. Officer, thank God. My grandmother. We need to talk, James interrupted, his voice flat. About the attempted murder of Dorothy Chun 45 minutes ago. The mask shattered. What? No. She drowned. It was an accident. The wheelchair didn't roll. You pushed it. We have the security footage. Tyler's face went slack. Amber made a small, choked sound. Then the news van pulled up. Lights, a camera. Jennifer Walsh, turn that off. Tyler shrieked, his composure gone. Public property, public arrest. Jennifer replied coolly, her cameraman already filming. It was then that I wheeled myself out of the garage, into the pool of light from the police cars. The look on their faces, the sheer, uncomprehending horror was worth every second of that cold, dark swim. It was a portrait of shattered certainty. Amber whispered, her eyes wide as saucers. You were in the water. I was, I said, my voice cutting through the night. You pushed me. I swam. James set up a laptop on his car hood. For the news camera, for the police, for the record, he played the footage. There was no ambiguity. The push, the scream, the splash, and their voices, clear and damning. She's gone. Now the $500,000 and the house are ours. Tyler tried to bluster. We were joking. It was a sick joke. Let's watch it again, James said tonelessly. See how funny it is. Amber, unraveling, turned on Tyler. You said she couldn't swim. He said she'd drowned for sure. Shut up, you idiot. Tyler grabbed her arm. Why would they think that? Mrs. Chun? James asked. For the record, I use a wheelchair, I announced, my voice clear and strong. But I am an Olympic swimmer, bronze medalist, 1976 Montreal Games. I swim in this lake almost every day. You thought the chair made me helpless. You forgot what I'm capable of. A car screeched to a halt, and Rachel ran out. She took in the scene, her son in handcuffs, the police, the news, me, alive and furibund, let out a wounded cry. Before Tyler could speak, she crossed the space and slapped him. Hard. Don't you dare, she hissed, tears streaming. I saw the video. I heard you. She turned to me, crumbling. Mom, I'm so sorry. This is not your fault, Rachel, I said, pulling her into a one-armed hug from my chair. He chose this. The arrests were formal, swift, As Tyler was led to a squat car, he looked back, his eyes pleading, "Grandma, please, I'm your grandson." I wheeled up to the window, my gaze level with his. "You stopped being my grandson when you pushed me into that lake. You saw me as money, an obstacle. You forgot I was a person. You thought my chair made me weak. You thought water would kill me." I leaned closer. "You forgot I'm an Olympic swimmer." Jennifer Walsh stepped forward, microphone extended. I told my story directly to the camera, to the world. I named the crimes. I stated my strength. My final message was for every older person, every person with a disability, listening. You are not helpless. You are not weak. You deserve to be protected, especially from those who see you as nothing but an inheritance. The story, as you can imagine, exploded. Olympic swimmer foils grandson's murder plot. Elderly woman records own attempted drown-in. It was a perfect storm of human treachery and triumphant survival. The investigation that followed was thorough and damning. Tyler's laptop revealed weeks of cold, premeditated searches, drowning accident staging, how long to drown, can wheelchair users swim, inheritance timeline after accidental death. He had forged checks from my account, siphoning off $15,000 in small increments over 6 months. On his phone, a draft email to a realtor, lakefront property available soon. Owner recently, deceit. The trial was a formality. The video evidence was unassailable. My testimony was steady. Rachel's testimony against her own son was devastatingly courageous. James Spark testified to my lifelong swimming prowess, and the prosecution showed recent footage of me coaching adaptive swimming, moving through the water with undeniable power. The jury found Tyler guilty of attempted first-degree murder, conspiracy, and a litany of financial crimes. Amber was convicted of conspiracy, and as an accessory, at sentencing, the judge excoriated Tyler for his insidious betrayal, sentencing him to 25 years, Amber to 15. "You are not sorry you did it," the judge said. "You are sorry you got caught. Your grandmother survived because of her strength, not your mercy." In the years that followed, I chose to live, not just survive. I established the Dorothy Chun Foundation for Elder Protection, funding legal aid, security systems for seniors, and, of course, adaptive swimming programs. This civil judgment against Tyler and Amber, symbolic $2 million they'd never pay funded at start. I became a speaker, an advocate, at conferences. I looked out at rooms full of social workers and lawyers and said, "They see the wheelchair, the gray hair, the slower step, and they assume vulnerability. They see a bank account with an inconvenient person attached. Show them they're wrong." On the second anniversary of that night, I swam the 2-mile width of Lake Morrison. Reporters, my students, Rachel, they all watched. It took me 90 minutes. When I touched the far shore, pulled myself into a waiting chair, I was exhausted and Tyler thought this water would kill me. I told the cameras, gasping but grinning, "Today, I conquered it. That is my answer. That is my victory." Letters from Tyler in prison went unread, returned. Parole hearing notices came. My statements to the board were unwavering. He intended to kill me. He should serve his time. The board agreed. Now at 70, my life is full. My classes are packed with people discovering that water is a great equalizer. Last week, an 80-year-old stroke survivor floated on her back for the first time in decades, her smile brighter than the pool lights. "I did it," she whispered. "You did," I said. "And you'll keep doing it." The rage has cooled, transformed into purpose. The betrayal is a scar, but one that no longer aches. Tylee occupies a cell. I occupy a life of teaching, of advocacy, of morning swims in the lake that was meant to be my grave. This morning, as I always do, I swam. The dawn was painting the sky in familiar shades of gold and pink. Stroke, breathes, the rhythm of a lifetime. After, I sat on the dock, the same dock, wrapped in a towel, watching the light dance on the water. They shoved my wheelchair into this lake and declared me gone. They saw an end, but I didn't sink. I swam, and in doing so, I reclaimed not just my life, but my story. I am Dorothy Chun. I am a swimmer. I am a survivor, and I am still here.